The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked advance against me to devour me, it is my enemies and my foes who will stumble and fall. Though an army besiege me, my heart will not fear. Though war break out against me, even then will I be confident. One thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord, and to seek him in his temple. For in the day of trouble he will keep me safe in his dwelling. He will hide me in the shelter of his sacred tent and set me high upon a rock. Then my head will be exalted above the enemies who surround me. At his sacred tent I will sacrifice with shouts of joy. I will sing and make music to the Lord. Hear my voice when I call, Lord. Be merciful to me and answer me. My heart says of you, seek his face. Your face, Lord, I will seek. Do not hide your face from me. Do not turn your servant away in anger. You have been my helper. Do not reject me or forsake me, God, my Savior. Though my mother and father forsake me, the Lord will receive me. Teach me your way, Lord. Lead me in a straight path because of my oppressors. Do not turn me over to the desire of my foes, for false witnesses rise up against me, spouting malicious accusations. I remain confident in this. I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord. Good morning to you all and a very warm welcome to Shabbat at the house. My name is Natalie Kendel. I am pastor here and I will also be your host for today. You've joined us on the official YouTube channel of the house. The house is an online house church where we share stories, music, prayer, social justice advocacy, and celebrate Shabbat together. Today is a rainy, cold August morning here, and we're going to be looking at a story found in Mark chapter 5 called Talitha Kumi. Now, some of you may have noticed that it's not the first time that we're looking at this story together, but the last version which we uploaded to the channel was taken from a live Zoom call back when we used to do all our events on Zoom, and so the quality was quite poor. Now we have remastered it so that you can enjoy this story in the full HD graphics and sound quality which it deserves. So that's our story coming up this morning. We'd also like to remind you of a couple of points of information. Number one, feel free to check out our podcast called The House Pod. On there we explore practical applications of faith, so where our faith hits the road of reality and real issues. You can find all of these podcast episodes here on the channel. Number two, if you'd like to take a course online which goes deep into Bible study and exegesis, go and check out ZETEO School here on YouTube. If you like our stories here at the house, then those courses are definitely for you. There you'll find classes taught by myself, and this is at university level curriculum as well, but it's been adapted for lay persons and people in ministry alike. And the courses are completely free. Number three, if you'd like to support the work that we do here at the house or over at ZETEO School, there is a host of ways that you can do this, whether it is donating to our PayPal, watching our YouTube videos, sharing them so others can see them as well, becoming a patron, and so on. Today we'd like to take a moment to give a huge shout out to one of our patrons, Lindsay Tabano, who is a faithful friend of the house and a wonderful light in the world and in our community here at the house. Thank you so much for being you, Lindsay, and thank you for who you decide to be in the world. And for all of you, even just by being here, you are helping us continue to do what we're doing. Thank you so much. And finally, number 4, in case you've missed it, you can now listen to the entire Bible on audiobook for free here on the channel. Simply find the playlist, it's titled The Bible Audiobook, and you'll be able to enjoy hours of listening to scripture from Genesis to Revelation, whether you're in the car, on the treadmill, or going to bed. And that's it for the information bits. Let's now open by singing With These Stones.
Come, you orphans, come, you fatherless, come, you outcasts, fallen through the cracks, come, you unclaimed, come, you scandalous, the Lord has gathered these unto himself. With these stones along the margins and the pieces they threw out, he will gather them around a cornerstone. With these disregarded people that the foolish disavowed, he will build up a house unto himself. Come, you unchurched, come, you struggling, come, discounted, come, you pondering, come, you lonely, deconstructing. The Lord has treasured these discarded jewels. With these stones along the margins and the pieces they threw out, he will gather them around a cornerstone. With these disregarded people that the foolish disavowed, he will build up a house unto himself. You've picked up rocks to stone them, and with your mouths condemn them, the very ones invited to people his kingdom. You've picked up rocks to stone them, you've ostracized, condemned them, but can't you see that we're all living in glass houses? With these stones along the margins and the pieces they threw out, he will gather them around a cornerstone. With these disregarded people that the foolish disavowed, he will build up a house unto himself. All these disregarded people that the foolish disavowed will be gathered round the cornerstone himself.
Here at the house, we sometimes share recommendations. And this week, we warmly recommend to you an idea which 3 co-workers came up with. And that is using blowing bubbles as a centering, nervous system calming method at work. While other people at work will step out of meetings and take a break on hectic days at the office by smoking, Tomas, Nick, and Adana buy the very inexpensive bottles of bubbles. And they stand around, and similar to blowing smoke, they blow bubbles instead. Now, the benefits of this is actually numerous. Firstly, they regulate one's breathing. When you're stressed or tense, it's easy to hold on to your breath, or for your breath to be too fast. And this causes more strain on the body, increases stress hormones, and accumulates more tension. Number 2, bubbles activate our fun and enjoyment. They are beautiful, whimsical, and an interruption to the ugliness and boringness around us. Number 3, the visual and tactile experience of bubbles, along with their somewhat erratic movements, can actually help people with ADD manage their struggles, as the motion and activity helps to focus them without punishing them. And number 4, blowing bubbles is actually enacting breathing exercises given to people who struggle with anxiety. That inhale followed by a slow, longer exhale helps to oxygenate the body. It aids the person in exiting a fight or flight mode, and thus helps mental clarity, decision-making, and being able to problem solve. Now, this friend group has shared that their bubble blow experience has not only been a bonding experience for them, but it's helped them to move through challenges at work with more calmness, and it even allows them a moment to step away from a problem and take some extra time to think before responding. It's very easy to be reactive, particularly when you're stressed. So bubble blowing is an excellent tool for parents and children as well. In fact, bubble blowing has been proved to significantly improve a child's early development. Now, we'd like to be clear and state that bubbles are not fixers of a toxic work environment, or the strain of capitalism, or a quick self-help solver for systemic oppression or problems. If you are in a work environment that is killing your spirit, if you are a victim of systemic suffering, and you have the privilege or opportunity to walk away from such environments, please do that. There's too much messaging in our society about how to cope with things that we're not meant to cope with. The answer instead, in those cases, is dramatic revolution, protection of victims, and change. But for the more minor strains of everyday life, blowing bubbles is quite a nifty idea, and it's certainly better than slowly poisoning yourself with cigarettes. We're now going to take a moment to be quiet together. Afterwards, we'll pray, and then we'll jump straight into our story for today. During this quiet time, I'm going to invite you, if you want to ask God if there is something He'd like to communicate to you. And we're going to be still enough to try to give that our full attention. Jesus, please bring peace to the storms we are currently experiencing. Center us once again on the things which are important, and that may very well be our well-being and how we're doing. Give us, in that case, the courage to take steps towards the care of ourselves and others where possible. Whether it is setting firmer boundaries, being more honest about our needs or limitations, letting go of fulfilling others' unreasonable expectations, taking accountability for our failures, or allowing ourselves to express the fullness of our emotions through safe outlets. Rage, helplessness, fear, depression, numbness, confusion. Help us to get it down on paper or let our tears fall. Let our words be met by empathetic ears. Let our anger find release and compassion. Be with every person here today who gives consent to your presence. Let your kindness be felt in a loud and very real way in their lives. We are reminded of what David wrote in Psalm 27. You, Lord, do not reject or abandon us. Though our own father and mother may forsake us, you will receive us. You will welcome us every single time. Even though the human relationships that were meant to love us unconditionally may fail to do so, even so, though some of us may have no experience, no framework for even imagining that kind of love or commitment, you remain a constant, insisting, always ready to receive us person. Lord, we ask now together as one voice, please deliver and rescue our brothers and sisters in Palestine. Break their oppressors, for even this past week the Israelis are mass exterminating Palestinians in Gaza concentration camp through a ground invasion with fire belts burning everything in their path. Make us brave for the oppressed and loud in our solidarity. May your Spirit bring alive the story we look at today, and may it impact us in a powerful and refreshing way. Amen. Our story today is found in the book of Mark chapter 5 as well as Luke chapter 8. Previously here at the house, some of you will remember that we explored 3 short stories wherein Jesus heals 3 different men. And we said that during this time period, news about Jesus is spreading throughout the land of Judea. People are coming in droves to find him, bringing their sick and their disabled for him to heal. Well, we plop down in a similar scene today. Let's begin reading from Mark chapter 5, verse 21, where it says, When Jesus had again crossed over by boat to the other side of the lake, a large crowd gathered around him while he was by the lake. Jesus has just crossed in a boat over the Sea of Galilee to the other side, and once he lands on that shore, the crowds again find him. Verse 22. Then one of the synagogue leaders, named Jairus, came, and when he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet. He pleaded desperately with him, saying, My little daughter is dying. Please, come and lay your hands on her so that she will be healed and live. Of the many interactions between Jesus and people recorded in the Gospels, this is a rather unusual one. Not because Jairus is asking for help, but because of who Jairus is. Jairus is described as being a synagogue leader. Now, synagogues were found in each of the towns and villages throughout Judea. They were buildings where Jewish people would gather to meet and study God's word and receive spiritual guidance and leadership, a bit like how churches are thought of today. And since the Roman occupation of Judea had begun, synagogues had grown into a very important place for the Jewish community. They served as hubs of connection, leadership, and authority. And just like a synagogue may be likened to a church today, similarly a synagogue leader was like a priest or a pastor, only he had more power of influence and a broader authority. This is all to say that Jairus was considered an important man in that town. He had a considerably powerful and authoritative position as a leader there. But if there's one thing you pick up on about Jesus and the religious leaders of his day, it's that they are usually in opposition to Jesus. They attack him in public, they consider him a blasphemous heretic, and some going as far as to actively plot his death. And so what Jairus does that day may have been shocking to onlookers. Because number one, he is the synagogue leader. Number two, in this time and culture, a religious leader doesn't bow down to just anyone. The emphasis on external dignity and stoicism was great, but here he is bowing down and begging Jesus. Number three, Pharisees or synagogue leaders ought to bow to no one who is not God. But number four, Jairus is asking Jesus to heal his daughter. Therefore, he is implying that he believes that Jesus can heal her, thus going against the beliefs of his colleagues and superiors. And on top of all this, Jairus is doing it in full view of all the townspeople around, in front of the whole crowd. You can believe that news of him bowing to Jesus will make its way back to his superiors in Jerusalem. But Jairus is experiencing something which can cause all concern about how one looks in public to be thrown out the window. Because if someone you love, like your child, is in danger or dying, what you thought was important in life can be drastically rearranged. Whatever Jairus may have thought of Jesus in the past, he is now willing to do anything to get his daughter help. His actions are clearly showing us what his priorities are. So let's continue from verse 24. So Jesus went with him. A large crowd followed and pressed around him. It is reasonable to assume that as Jairus is leading Jesus to his home, the crowd following Jesus slowed his progress considerably. In fact, as we read, the crowd is described as pressing in on him. Can you imagine, on that walk, how frustrating this would be for Jairus? Time is against them, his daughter is dying, and the crowd is slowing Jesus down. Come on, hurry up, Jesus. We must get there in time. Verse 25. And a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors, and had spent all she had, yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak, because she thought, if I just touch his clothes, I will be healed. Immediately, her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was free from her suffering. So here, as the crowd is moving along, a woman joins them. She is described as having bled or hemorrhaged for 12 years. She has spent all her money on trying to receive medical care to help her, but she has only gotten worse. People don't spend all their money on trying to fix a medical problem, which is nothing more than a mild nuisance. So it's safe to say that her condition must have been very taxing or painful. And sadly, this is still a situation that many people with long-term illnesses can relate to today. Spending years trying to get help or heal a physical suffering, but things continuing to take a nosedive, and in the end, all of one's money gets sucked into trying to solve the problem. The woman here thinks, if I can just touch Jesus' clothes, I will be healed. She does manage, despite the pressing crowd, to reach out and touch his cloak, which I imagine was not easy if the crowd was, as we read, pressing in on Jesus. But when she does manage to touch his cloak, she is healed. It may be hard for some who haven't experienced being in pain or being ill for a long period of time. The gut-wrenching relief the woman must have felt at being healed, at being rid of what had caused her so much suffering and what had driven her to bankruptcy, without relief or hope of getting better. Luke 8:45. "Who touched me?" Jesus asked. When they all denied it, Peter said, "Master, the people are crowding and pressing against you." Yes, thank you, Peter. Very astutely observed. It almost sounds like Peter here is saying, Jesus, everyone's touching you. You're in a claustrophobic situation in a crowd, hemmed in on every side, people bustling and jostling you. Of course someone touched you. Verse 46. But Jesus said, "Someone touched me. I know that power has gone out from me." In the creation story of the Una-Likmiut Yupik tribe, a raven is described as, by chance encounter, discovering the first man inside a pea pod. Now, I've heard sermons and commentary on this text in Mark 5, describing Jesus healing this woman by accident, by chance encounter, as though he was a magic object just passing through, and something good happens to happen without his knowledge. If you just touch him, even his clothes, you will be healed or a miracle will take place. The problem with this is that it just ends up describing God a bit like a vending machine. Put in the coin, press the button, and you get a tasty treat. The vending machine doesn't have a brain, doesn't interact, doesn't have knowledge about the universe or a relationship to the people around it. It's just wired to give you what you want at the press of a button. If we are to believe that God is deliberate, intelligent, and that all good things are deliberate gifts from him, we must come to a different conclusion than that Jesus accidentally heals a woman and is now wondering who went yoink and took a gift from him. But if Jesus knew the woman was reaching out and chose to heal her, why is he now asking who touched him? If you already know who it is, Jesus, why are you asking? Well, to get to the bottom of that, we have to understand the nature of this woman's illness. This woman who reached out didn't just have her illness to deal with, because according to the religious laws of the Jews, a woman who is bleeding is unclean during the time she is bleeding. And when you are deemed ceremonially unclean, you can't go into the temple. Anyone who touches you or is under the same roof as you will also become unclean. This means that this woman has likely not or hardly been touched, been visited at her home, been able to go anywhere, or been able to go to the synagogue or the temple for 12 years. Which means having little to no community, no spiritual support, and also not being able to make the sin offering each year for the forgiveness of her sins. In other words, this woman has been perpetually unclean, cut off from the people, and according to her appearances, even from God. Her life has been one of loneliness, She has been ostracized and treated maybe with disgust or at best sympathetic distance. And that is why what happens next is so significant. Mark 5:33. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet, and trembling with fear told him the whole truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your trust has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering." Now we know, and the woman knows, that she's already been healed. So why is Jesus stopping and telling her, "Your trust has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering"? Hasn't that already happened? Again, we return to the question, Jesus, why are you asking who touched you if you know who did? Can't the woman just be healed and then go on her way? Why are you making this big public display and calling her forward? Well, if a woman has been bleeding for 12 years and is known for being permanently unclean, and she suddenly comes home and tells her neighbors and all around her, "I'm all better now. Let me into your community. Let me into your synagogues, the temple." How can anyone know that this is true? And this is why what Jesus is doing is so powerful. Because that day, he healed this woman not in one, but in two ways. He healed her physically as she reached out and touched his cloak, and now he is healing her socially by speaking to her. Jesus wasn't asking who touched me because he didn't know who he had just healed. Jesus is making seen a person whose society would rather not see her. He is restoring this woman to a place in her community because he's saying for all to hear, "I have healed you, you are free." Usually a person who had been unclean would have to go to the temple, present themselves to one of the priests there, and then be declared clean or not. But here, Jesus is doing this for her. This is also deeply impactful because Jesus is sparing this woman from humiliation. He is sparing her from the humiliation of having to prove that her bleeding has stopped, if we are to assume that the bleeding spoken about here is like her period, so from an intimate part. With all those years of going to doctors, how much humiliation and embarrassment and exposure do you think this woman had experienced? In examination after examination, in treatment after treatment, enough for a lifetime. But Jesus is saying, enough, no more of that for you. I will protect you from any more poking and prodding and looking and indignity. Jesus clothes the woman with privacy and dignity and respect. Now everyone around has heard this from Jesus' own mouth. News will spread throughout the town. It isn't a secret that only the woman experiences and knows to be true. She doesn't have to prove now that she's been healed to people. She doesn't have to present herself, perhaps experience further humiliation by going to a priest, because people already know that Jesus is capable and able to heal, because they've seen the evidence of Jesus' healings with their own eyes. They don't need to see the evidence of the woman being healed by her further exposure. By allowing her to get close to him, touching his clothes, and stating aloud what both he and the woman knows has happened, Jesus is restoring this lonely, shunned person a social life and a place of belonging and acceptance in society. Now Jesus, during this interaction, has allowed time to pass. He has stopped moving in order to engage with this woman. Imagine how maddeningly impatient Jairus must have felt by now. Not only was the crowd slowing Jesus down, But now Jesus is stopping entirely for a side quest, to deal with something else. You can almost hear Jairus thinking, Jesus, my problem is more urgent. Can't this wait? Get your priorities straight. Verse 35. While Jesus was still speaking, some people came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader. Your daughter is dead, they said. Why bother the teacher anymore? The worst had happened, and in Jairus' mind, it's over. They didn't make it on time. Overhearing what they said, Jesus told him, don't be afraid, keep trusting. When they came to the home of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw a commotion, with people crying and wailing loudly. He went in and said to them, why all this commotion and wailing? The child is not dead, but asleep. But they laughed at him. So despite what has happened, Jesus continues to go to Jairus' house. And when they arrive, there is a lot of noise and activity. People are crying and wailing loudly. Now we, as we read this, may think, well, yes, of course they're wailing loudly. A child has just died. Why is Jesus telling them not to? If you go attend a funeral in England, peopled by predominantly white people, the behavior of those attending will tend to be quite muted. And culturally, some tend to mourn in a private manner, behind closed doors, in a subdued or quiet way. But in those days, in Western Asia, and if you've perhaps seen current-day Western Asian funeral processions on the news, you'll notice that this culture's act of mourning is a lot grander, more expressive, more outwards, some may say more theatrical or external, than we might be used to in parts of the global West. And in the days of Jesus, they had something which was called professional mourners. Now, professional mourners would be hired by a family in which someone was close to death, or be hired for funerals. And the job of these mourners was to add to the expression of a loss. So they would loudly moan. Women in this profession would be trained in how to wail as loudly as possible, to make noise and a big deal. And it was not uncommon for a home like Jairus' home to be filled with people if someone was ill. It would have likely been full of neighbours, relatives, just curious townspeople, and of course the professional mourners. This was a staple part of Jewish culture at the time. And there may be some here today who have, for example, grown up in a traditional Zimbabwean household, where it too is common for the bereaved to have their house constantly populated by relatives or friends for days and days after the death has taken place, all the way to the funeral. Now, with all this in mind, we understand a bit more of what's going on in this scene. As Jesus arrives at the house, the mourners are already busy at their work. They are wailing loudly as a display. And something interesting happens in Mark 5:39. When Jesus says, "Why all this noise and wailing? The child is not dead but asleep." And then verse 40 says, "But they laughed at him." That's a bit of a quick mode shift, isn't it? Going from wailing loudly to mockingly laughing at someone. What a change of mood. But Jesus is undeterred. End of verse 40. After he put them all out, he took the child's father and mother and the disciples who were with him and went in where the child was. Luke tells us that Jesus takes with him the girl's parents, and Peter, James, and John, and everyone else is sent out. And then it says, he took her by the hand and said to her, "Talitha kumi," which means "rise, little girl" in Aramaic. Immediately the girl stood up and began to walk around. She was 12 years old, At this they were completely astonished. Then Jesus told them to give her something to eat. Now, in a previous week, we looked at these 3 other stories of Jesus healing people. And we saw how Jesus doesn't just focus on healing people's physical ailments, but on how he treats them in the process of that healing. And this week, we find something similar happening here. Let's break down some of the noteworthy points in this story. Number 1, Jesus is willing to come to what may very well be his enemy's house, to heal his enemy's daughter, because as we've said, it is likely Jairus, as a religious leader, was not friendly towards Jesus. And even if he was, it is guaranteed that his superiors in Jerusalem would have seen his actions as treacherous, going to Jesus, asking him for help, and it might cost him his position and reputation. But Jesus goes with him because he prioritizes helping people. Number 2, on the way to Jairus' house, Jesus is willing to not only heal, but to stop to engage with the woman. He could have done a heal and dash, but he takes the time for care. He understands that with illness can come more than just the illness. It comes with loneliness, the loss of connection, the loss of autonomy, being socially ostracized and being cut off. And so he interacts with the woman and publicly restores her to belonging in the community and assures her in her relationship with God. Jesus prioritized a holistic healing and the woman's well-being. Number 3, we said that Jairus was probably going out of his mind with impatience at Jesus' delay in getting to his house. We said that Jairus was willing to do anything to save his child, to get her help. But Jesus turns around and calls this other woman daughter. Luke 8:48. This is the only time that he is recorded as calling an individual that in the Gospels. Here Jesus is expressing, Jairus, yes, you have a daughter, and I am going to her. But this woman is my daughter too. You will do anything to help yours. I will do whatever I can to help mine. She may seem to be a footnote in your story, someone in the way, on the way to helping someone else, but I am going to take the time to see her and help her. Now, some may have felt that Jairus' need should have been ranked above the woman because of Jairus' position. If he was comparable to a pastor today, some would say, well, I'm going to prioritize the pastor before this random woman on the way. But Jesus prioritizes care over mere urgency, and who needed his help over someone's position. He could have easily said, well, this woman has been sick for years. She can last one more day. But he doesn't do that. Wouldn't it be wonderful if patients received such care when they came to see a doctor or visit the hospital? Not to be simply rushed around or impatiently stitched up, but seen as a person and treated as one too. Number 4. When Jairus is told that his daughter has died, Jesus tells him he doesn't have to be afraid, but to keep trusting him. Now, this is not a case of Jesus saying to a parent, don't be upset about the loss of your child. That would be preposterously callous. Instead, even though Jesus knows he's going to shortly solve the problem, he is taking the time to assure Jairus that he's still going to help him. Jesus is addressing Jairus present feelings. Jesus knows what he's going off to do. He knows that within the hour, Jairus will have his daughter back. But he exists with Jairus in the present moment of crushing sadness and assures him, this isn't over, I'm still going to help. And finally, point number 5. When Jesus enters the house, he doesn't just go and wake up the girl. He first makes sure that the environment for her to wake up in isn't frightening or jarring. Imagine for a moment things from her perspective, from her point of view. She's just felt like she fell asleep, and then waking up to a house filled with the loud noise of professional mourners, wailing, or her mother crying loudly. All that noise and all those people, that can be a lot to handle and scary, even on the best of days, even for adults. So what he does is he clears everyone out, making sure familiar faces are there when she wakes up, her parents. And then finally, when he raises her from the dead, you can only imagine the ecstatic joy which her parents felt and expressed. But again, what does Jesus do? He says, give her something to eat. Amidst all the emotion, Jesus doesn't forget his patient. He is prioritizing the girl and her well-being. It would be easy for everyone to be so overjoyed that she was no longer dead, but if she has been ill for a long time, ill enough to die, it is likely she hasn't eaten in a while. And so once again, Jesus prioritizes the holistic needs, the care, the treatment of the person he is healing. He makes sure that she feels safe and makes sure that she is fed. I sometimes think about some of the televangelists that claim that they can heal people. You may have seen clips of this on TV or online. And some of these characters draw a great crowd of people wanting to be healed. They come up on stage, there is charismatic music playing, someone shouting, confusing babbling, the audience is whipped into an emotional frenzy, and then the person who wishes to be healed is theatrically touched. Sometimes the evangelist or healer may strike them or knock them to the ground or touches them so they seem to faint and have to be caught as they fall. And I then think about how Jesus healed people. That it wasn't about theater. It wasn't about entertaining the people or playing on their feelings or people's perception of the situation, or showing off or putting on a show. Jesus focuses on the person in need of healing, on those in pain. He wasn't just about fixing a problem, but how he treated the person in the process, treating them, as we said, with dignity, with respect, and not just as someone defined by their one problem, but a whole person in need of kindness and care. And as we saw in one of our other stories called The Lame, the Blind, and the Deaf, what we may mistake for theatrical displays or even superstitious rituals is often an act of respect and consideration by Jesus. Because to him, people are the most important, and that they're treated with love and dignity. That was true of how Jesus treated the little girl and her family, and also how he treated the woman on the way. That's how Jesus treated 2 of his daughters that day. And that tells us a lot about Jesus' priorities. And it should also invite us to take a look at our own priorities in how we, in the various circles of our lives, treat the people around us. What are our priorities? Let's conclude this thought together by singing Shine a Little Light.
The times are dark and it's hard to hope, to remember what kindness can feel like. So many hands outstretched in a question, will nobody help as they pass? But every moment is another chance to shine a little light in the dark places, light up the corners where candles of hope's gone out. Shine a little light in the dark places, even the smallest of sparks interrupts the night. Each day's a new opportunity. Every person you meet's in a battle. Rise up to meet the chances around you, to love and to help where you can. And every moment is another chance to shine a little light in the dark places, light up the corners where candles of hope gone out. Shine a little light in the dark places, even the smallest of sparks interrupts the night. Who hides a lamp under a bowl? A town it shines upon a hill, and we were meant to shine as well. Arise and shine, you light of the world. And every person is another chance to shine a little light in the dark places, light up the corners where candles of hope's gone out. Shine a little light in the dark places, even the smallest of sparks interrupts the night. Shine a little light in the dark places, light up the corners where candles of hope's gone out. Shine a little light in the dark places, even the smallest of sparks interrupts the night. Come defy the night and let your light shine. Shine a little light. Shine a little light. Shine a little light.
May the Lord of life and resurrection be with you. May his light shine into your darkness. And until next week, thank you all so much for spending time, your precious time, with us here at Shabbat at the House today. Shabbat Shalom. See you next time.